You're listening to the Chai95 Radio Hour on WWDB 860 AM in Philadelphia and on the web at www.dbam.com. We are being sponsored today by Singer Financial Corp, singerfinancial.com, your source for hard money loans in the greater Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. With me I'm Adam Taxon, Chai95 Radio Hour again, and with me in the studio is Bob Gazzardi of the Liberty Blog, thelibertyblog.org. And let me welcome Sam Rohrer, who was in the Pennsylvania State House for 18 years and is the front runner, and we know he's the front runner now because now they're attacking him from the left. He's the front runner for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate here in Pennsylvania. He would be going against Senator Bob Casey in November. Welcome, Sam.
And a good introduction here so far. Lots of things to talk about in there.
You were on last Thursday, and we had a great talk with you, but it occurred to me afterwards that our audience may not know that much about you other than you're a longtime state representative from the Reading area. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of a biography of yourself.
I'd be glad to do that, Adam. I'm married for 34 years to the same woman. We had 6 children, 6 grandchildren. The 6th one just born a few days ago, the grandchild. 5 sons and a daughter. We've homeschooled our children since our oldest was going in the 6th grade, and took on that responsibility because we knew it was the responsibility of parents, and that we're glad that we did that. I was in private business for 15 years. I managed a radio station for 2 years, and then was the director of marketing for a private company called Graco Children's Products that makes baby furniture, located in Elverson. It's been sold now. After I left to run for the House, but very, very successful, and I was with them for 13 years there, and responsibility to develop product and figure out what mothers wanted and bring it to market successfully. Had a chance to travel the world probably 24 times just the Far East alone in relation to that, and it helped to prepare my thinking and my view of the world and what the needs were in preparation for running for the House in 1992, which I did. Ran on an open seat, a 6-way race, similar to the U.S. Senate race right now, and never been involved in the political field before, but ran. We won, and then spent 9 terms in the House. So when I was in the House, I focused my areas on tax and fiscal policies. Number 1, educational issues, secondarily, and then the defense of constitutional freedom related issues as my 3rd area. And as a result, I championed the issues of everything from Second Amendment to 10th Amendment to state sovereignty to opposing federal involvement in education way back in the early 90s when America 2000 and Goals 2000, which turned into No Child Left Behind, came into place. Challenged very early on the first advent of what is now Obamacare, when its early stage is Hillary Care, and began to be implemented through the school system and traveled the country, talked about what would happen if we didn't stop it in those early years. And now it's fully fledged. And made a promise in 1992 when I ran. I said then we didn't have a revenue problem, we had a spending problem, and I saw no reason to vote to raise taxes. And regardless of the against me to raise them or to vote for it, I never voted for a tax increase. So I can say, Adam, really truthfully, in all of my years there, I have never made an unconstitutional vote, and I've tried to champion those things that for limited government and for individual freedom, and that's where I've stood, and that's where I'll stand if I go to Washington.
My understanding is you're from a humble background, and you've not let your government service get to your head in Harrisburg, at least. But one thing we're wary of here in Pennsylvania is people going to Washington and becoming a little arrogant. And this is not necessarily the case for Senator Casey, who you're opposing, but we certainly are familiar with Arlen Specter, who is known as quite imperious, including the way he treated people. And Washington can often have that effect on people. And I'm doing this a little bit in jest, but I want Tim to roll a clip that you may be familiar with.
Well, why has it been delayed?
Ma'am, at the LACPR is...
do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
Yes.
It's just a thing. I worked so hard to get that title, so I'd appreciate it. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Senator.
Well, that is Senator Barbara Boxer, who may be the worst of the worst in terms of imperiousness in Washington.
Go until you get a stop.
Sam, how do we know you're not going to have something like that go to your head?
Well, Bob, I think, the best thing the best thing I can say is that, in my 18 years, honestly, truly, before God, I understand that to be in office is to be a servant of the people, and it is not to be a king or a lord of them. And as I've studied my Constitution and understand the philosophy of our founders and what they perceive, what William Penn thought about those who were in government, the last thing that we can want is an imperial thought. And that comment by Barbara Boxer, that's worthy of a laugh a little bit. But you know what? That is an absolutely serious comment because so many actually hold that. And I guess the best way to say it is that I hold to a servant concept of government. In my 18 years, no one can say that I have in any ways acted like that. And I have, with God's help, I'm not going to do it when I go to Washington either.
Well, let me interject. I was fortunate enough to be with Sam when he was challenging the Governor Corbett in the primary, and I can say from personal experience myself, as well as talking to other people, Sam is what you would call down to earth, and when he looks at himself as the servant, I think that I can attest to it, and people that know him will know that. I don't think that we're going to, if I can take a shot here, my favorite former senator did go to Washington and abandoned principles to be a team player and exhibited a kind of imperiousness that I think he will get some payback from very, very soon. But
can you just say who you're referring to there?
Rick Santorum. Let me, if I may, Sam, you have the...
Yes.
There's a couple of things that are very interesting. Politics PA had a roundup of endorsements, and I see that you were endorsed by the Pentecostal clergy, a group of African-American ministers in Philadelphia, and I was wondering if you could explain how a white fella from Berks County gets support from African-Americans in Philadelphia. What's the connection there?
You know what? That's a good question because I was at the endorsement process, and lo and behold, there's Chalk Fatah speaking before me, and I followed after Chalk Fatah gave the keynote. And we had two completely different directions. But when the bishop stood up and introduced me to the large group that were there, he said, I can stand and tell you right now, folks, he said that Sam, of all the politicians that I've met, is the one that I can trust. And he put his arm around me and said, he's my brother. Now think about that.
Wow.
He introduced me as, he said, and I can tell you because he holds the truth in his heart, he said, I'm going to introduce him as a man of God. Now, that is quite a little statement, and I would say the difference there is how can that happen? It happens because even though there may not be agreement on all of the issues, the community understands and relates on the basis of faith, a common faith, and understanding in Judeo-Christian viewpoint of life is what binds us together as American people. And they want someone who will tell them the truth, not promise everything under the sun, which has happened for so long. They want the truth, and they know they can get it from me. And I'm just very humbled at that endorsement. But there is a very, very strong connection on groups that you would not think would be supporting a truly conservative constitutional republic. But in fact, that's what people want, and I think that's an indication of what's there. And frankly, there'll be more like that coming. It's very encouraging, and it's probably very worrisome for Senator Casey.
Well, I think that it shows that ideas and beliefs can trump, as they should in America, skin color and ethnic background. There was an interesting comment on the Politics PA. You know that we hear from our liberal and leftist friends about discrimination in this and discrimination in that. One subject they never talk about is discrimination in abortion, and it is shocking. And frankly, I will say I'm probably not quite where you are emotionally on the issue, but it is shocking for somebody like me to just look at the numbers and see the discrimination in abortion. And I was wondering if you could comment on that issue, not so much from a moral point of view, but from a mathematical point of view.
Well, I'm not quite sure which direction you're going on that, Bob, but I will say this, that, from an economic perspective, just take it from a numbers perspective. Clearly the number of abortions have been historically higher in the minority communities, as we would say it. But in total, if you take a look at the entire total, which is now approximately 50 million, it's an entire generation of our young people. So I say, there's the moral aspect of the killing of the unborn and government's responsibility to protect all life, regardless of color or age or disability level. It's when any devaluation of life at early or age, or length of life, or disability or color, if any determination is made that one is more valuable than another, we are all in big trouble and have lost our freedom. But 50 million babies born in this country is an entire generation, and we look and we say, all right, what do we want right now? Well, we want more consumers. Yeah, we want more participants in Social Security. Well, frankly, we have an entire generation that's not supporting any of those things. I mean, when we do what's wrong, we pay for it in a lot of different ways.
Sam, it's Adam Taxon again here. Assuming that you do win in late April in the primary, you're going to be facing Senator Casey, and we can pretty much predict that they will go after you with the boilerplate war against women charges related to abortion we were just talking about. How will you respond to that?
Well, I'd say, those kind of bogus claims, I don't know how one really stands up against it. The first thing to me, I put my arm around my wife and say, here's my wife of 34 years, 35 maybe, if we go down the road a few months, and here's our 6 children and grandchildren. And you think this is a war against women? Frankly, I believe that my thought and our thought as constitutional conservatives place women on the most elevated position that most civilizations have. And it's rather a war against women. It is nothing less than that, anything more than a preservation and a respect and an honoring for our wives and for our mothers, which is where I've always been, which is what I would uphold. It's the furthest thing from a war. It's abortion has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the preservation of life, which includes my wife, our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters.
Well, Sam, I just came back from Israel. I was in Israel for 2 weeks, and part of what I did was, as the rabbis say, learn there. And I had a very straight-ahead conversation with a rabbi, and your views and his views are near identical. And it is, I think, so important in your candidacy that you're talking about the issues of values, respect for women, respect for children, the value of life. It's not something that we hear very much, and so let them attack you. And while we're talking about attacks, I think you probably lit up your day when you said that you were attacked by Think Progress. I don't understand their first argument that you don't understand basic budget law. You were in, so I won't even talk about that. But they say, Sam, that you are a tenther, and that seems to refer to the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Tell me, Sam, are you as radical as the founders of our country and think states should have sovereignty?
When you get attacked by a group of that type and they lay out those items, it identifies themselves as being where they are, and they are completely outside the view of the constitutional rule of law. The 10th Amendment is the distinctive barrier between the gigantic, overarching federal government and the maintenance of state sovereignty. And anyone who reads the Constitution, understands our founders, understood that the federal government was to be extraordinarily limited, focused on very few things, really, with all of the rest being left to the states and to individuals collectively, where the power rests fully in the people. And the failure to observe the 10th Amendment has caused a usurpation of rights of the states and consolidated power in Washington, which right now, frankly, in essence, allows the federal government to be telling people what to do in their own backyard. The overarching regulations through EPA and so forth is telling us what we can do under the ground, what we can do on top of the ground. They would like to think they own the water, they own the air, they own everything, entirely opposite. And so I have stood up on the 10th Amendment and took the lead in the House, and in many cases it said, wait a minute, there is no place for the federal government to be telling us what to do in areas of education or energy, health care, all of those things. Frankly, if the 10th Amendment would be observed, you wouldn't have Obamacare right now.
Sam,
so it's very strong.
Sam, we have a lot more we want to ask you. We only have a couple more minutes, and we have a caller on the line. Kate is on from Washington, D.C. right now.
Hello, this is Kate Nahapetian. I'm calling from the Armenian National Committee of America. Thank you for taking my question. The show had a segment on the Armenian genocide just a couple of days ago, and I understand that you also feel very strongly about it. And as a man of faith, I wanted to know, what is your position on the Armenian genocide? Would you allow foreign governments like Turkey to gag the United States and prohibit people from speaking about the Armenian genocide, like our diplomats are currently prohibited from talking about it? And what would you do to help prevent genocide also in Sudan? Sudan is preventing foreign assistance from reaching South Kordofan right now, and that's an issue that's at the forefront that we care a lot about also. So wanted to get your positions on that.
Okay, well, Kate, thank you. Thank you much for that. First of all, I'll just state, like I said before, these are matters of fact and truth and historical reality are not things to be shoved under the rug, to be covered over, to be refused to be to talked about. And as a leader of the free world, the United States and those in it, the senators, congressmen, president, have an obligation to speak out in the defense of those who are downtrodden, those who are persecuted, those who are ultimately are involved in such things, horrendous things as genocide of all things. That to bring that to light, to make it known, and to do anything other than that, I think, is a relinquishing of duty and responsibility in regard to the sacredness of life, of all life. And so I would be very bold and clear to speak out wherever and whenever atrocities of that type occur, and to use my position, however it can be, whether it be for resolutions or however that would be to get passed, to raise the spectrum, to raise the attention to all of these where they occur. We just simply cannot allow these kinds of things to occur again. And unfortunately, there's evidences of attempts for that to be happening again as you speak, and that just cannot be done, and anyone uphold any kind of moral uprightness or moral truth.
Kate, did you want to just clarify the gag order, just because a lot of people don't know what that is, and maybe before Sam answers that part of the question, can you just talk about what you mean there? Just a lot of people are unfamiliar.
Yes, thank you. The Armenian genocide happened during World War I, and at the time, U.S. diplomats actually risked their lives to document the crimes. But as Turkey became more important to U.S. interests, the position changed, and today it's to the point where U.S. diplomats, if they speak about the Armenian genocide like Ambassador John Evans did a few years ago, they actually suffer negative consequences to the point of being pushed out and actually fired. So right now, because of the Turkish government, the U.S. government is not allowed to speak honestly about the Armenian genocide. And when Congress tries to pass resolutions to commemorate this crime, the President, Obama, has actually opposed those efforts because the Turkish government tries to silence any discussion in the United States to the point of funding U.S. chairs at universities that will then also propagate the lies and propaganda of the Turkish government.
Kate, thanks for the call. And Sam, do you just want to answer that? And we only have another minute or two with you.
Yeah, I'll just answer that very quickly. That is the kind of thing where, again, referring to that a fact of history that occurred, if I were there, I would push and join the others that are trying to make that known. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be spoken out against by people in positions of authority in the U.S. Senate and in Congress, to speak out and speak against the president when he improperly squashes the revealing of the truth and limits the free speech of those who are in positions who ought to speak and recognize that. Because if we don't recall that which has happened, we're going to repeat it again, and that just cannot happen.
Would you, as a senator, co-sponsor resolutions?
Yes, I would. Okay. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's the answer. Sam Rohrer, we have a lot more to talk about with you, and we'd love to have you on again sometime, but we are out of time. I know Bob wants to say one last thought.
I wanted to ask you, will you be at the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference this weekend?
Bob, I sure will, and look forward to being there. It's going to be a big event. It's going to be well attended, I know, and we'll have a debate with the other candidates on Saturday that people can watch and be a part of. And so there's a lot happening. I will be there. I look forward to seeing you there.
Good. And I just want to point out to our listeners that Sam was not endorsed by the Republican State Committee. Many of us look at that as a terrific endorsement. So thank you very much, Sam. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Bob. Same here. Adam, same here. Have a good day.